The Deer Agency specializes in helping you understand your coverage before you need it. We offer all lines of personal and commercial insurance, including auto, home, and life. Contact Don Deer at 210-507-2169 and visit us at 7529 North Loop 1604 in Live Oak, Texas, or farmersagent.com/ddeer.
Are you pregnant and alone? You have options. The Sanctuary of Hope offers expectant mothers ages 12 to 22 a place to live, medical care, counseling, continued education, and options to raise your baby in a loving environment or help you with adoption. We want to help provide you and your baby with a bright future. Call us or email us today and let's walk through this together. 210-499-1554 or sohcares.org. All inquiries are confidential.
Hey, this is I Am Refocused Radio with your host, Shemaya Reed, and special thanks to Documation. They make this possible to hear on this station that you're listening to right now. And coming up, we're going to be talking to Dr. Gregory Daniel. He is not just a musical genius. He's also going to share his life story and his faith. And I know you will be inspired. So sit back and relax and enjoy today's show.
I Am Refocused Radio is brought to you by Documation, service that serves. Technology solutions to keep you moving forward. Visit nation.com today. You are listening to I Am Refocused Radio with your host, Shemaya Reed. This show is designed to inspire you to live your purpose and regain your focus. And now, here's your host, Shemaya Reed.
Hey, welcome to I Am Refocused Radio. We are here once again, and today we have a special guest, Dr. Gregory Daniel. And I just want to introduce Mr. Gregory Daniel to the show and say, how are you doing, sir?
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Man, doing great, man. So tell the audience a little bit about yourself, because I think people are going to be surprised about all the great things that you have done so far, and you're still young.
Man, I'm glad you think so. Probably the latest thing is I'm going now by Dr. Gregory Daniel, almost Esquire. I'm just waiting on my law license, but I did just graduate from Thurgood Marshall School of Law back in May. That's been 3 years in the works. I think last time we talked, I was still at Berklee in undergrad, so lots changed since then. So that's one of the latest things. Of course, I do still play for Brian McKnight. He did just release another record. It's slated to be his final one. Between me and you, I don't know. I hope not. He just released that a couple of weeks ago, and I did perform on that record. Still doing real estate. I do have my real estate license, still helping people sell and buy homes, even now, surprisingly. Believe it or not, now is a great time to buy, for investors especially. Still some stuff here and there. Still working on the And We Know record that'll come out either late this year or early next year. So you know how I am, man. I'm always doing something.
Tell the audience, people who don't know Dr. Gregory Daniel, tell them a little bit about yourself. How was life growing up?
Man, growing up, it was all about music. And, one thing I tell people, looking back, it's a little easier to see, that I was never one to just sit still and do one thing at a time. As I've gotten older, I've kind of embraced that. But when I was younger, it was all about music for me. It's all about playing drums. I started, as young as 3 years old, watching my uncle play in church, and standing up behind the drums trying to play when the children's choir was up. And I never let go of that. That's where most of my training and upbringing as far as music is concerned happened in church. I don't even remember really getting to truly listen to secular music until I was probably 14, 15. I could listen to, Stevie Wonder and Michael Jackson, certain stuff here and there, but I didn't really delve deep into it until I was older. But even today, if you get in the car with me or in my truck, 90% of the time I'm listening to gospel music because that's just what I love, and it's deep in me. And so that's what it was like growing up. Met my pastor around when I was 15, I believe, when I was at Place for Life, and he came on board as the minister of music there, my Pastor Will Bonds of Vertical Church. And, that's really when professional training took over. And one of the things I credit him as well as our creative director at Vertical Church, Steve Collins, is, that's where that season of my life is where I really learned the professional approach to music and how to have a standard when it comes to learning music, when it comes to executing what I do, and, not just doing it blindlessly or aimlessly. I credit those guys and owe them a lot to being able to do what I do now, because I see the parallel in being on the bandstand with them or being in service and having to be attentive, having to be in tune, being quick, being smart in my decision making, even behind the drums, to where now when I do those same things on stage with McKnight, I know where it was instilled in me. That's what growing up was for me when it comes to music, and I had a great family. My grandfather, the patriarch of our family, was a singer and a piano player, and so music was always, that was not something I was ever going to be able to run away from. So that's what it was like, man. And like I said, I never got away from music. I'm never intending to. It's just as I've gotten older, there's other areas in music that's interested me, including the business side. There's other avenues. I'm like, hey, I think I like this and I can do this and I'm capable of doing this. And honestly, with what's going on now, I'm very glad I'm that way.
And once again, you're listening to I Am Refocused Radio. We are interviewing Dr. Gregory Daniel, and we're learning everything about him and his amazing life. He started, correct me if I'm wrong, you started playing the drums at 3 years old.
Yes, sir.
What was the first experience like when you started to play drums for the very first time?
Man, it's hard for me to remember back that far. Where I remember is when we first moved to San Antonio, and we used to go to church with Joshua Hurt and his parents. We used to go to their church, Harvest Time Fellowship, Pastor Alonzo Hurt and Diane Hurt. That's where I really remember, really starting to play in church. My mom was the choir director. Josh was the main drummer. So I would always, be standing off to the side hoping I get a chance to play if he jumped on keyboards or something like that, and or if it was a children's choir. And so, I remember those days, coming home from school, going to choir practice with my mom, practicing at home, just hoping I get to play in service on Sundays. I'd show up on Sundays and sit right next to the drums with my own little stick bag. And, around this time, I'm about 8 or 9 years old. So, I'm just waiting for my chance. But that was my experience. That's something that I feel like is kind of lost today. A lot of, you don't see that much more in church anymore. Just young guys sitting, waiting for their chance. You see it often, but not as much as, some of my peers and people that came before me kind of grew up in that school of things.
You surrounded yourself with great people who were like-minded. They had goals. They had structure in their life. You mentioned a couple of people, Steve Collins and Will Bonds. Shout out to them. They're great people. They help guided you and give you education with how to use music as an opportunity. And like you said earlier, as a structured way to do it the right way, where you're not just aimlessly doing random things, but you have a strategic goal set in mind. How has that set you apart, you think, from other artists who just kind of want the fame or just want the popularity instead of having that foundation?
I think the biggest thing is just the standard. And this is no knock to smaller ministries or anything like that. I've been blessed that, one of the ministries I came up with, or a couple of them, even with those two guys, we were in together in ministry in some of the biggest churches in San Antonio. And being on that level and that platform, you have to exude a certain standard. And because I was used to that, because that's where I was trained in, it's unnatural for me to want to go into any other situation and not hold myself and hold, if I'm in a leadership position, anybody else to the same standard. And so that standard translates when it comes time, even as just a drummer. That standard translates because you'll find that when you get on those big platforms, like I did with McKnight, that in those situations you don't get a chance. That nobody's going to tell you, you need to have this standard or you're out of here. You pretty much need to know, like, you got to bring your A game or that's it. Yeah. And so being in an environment with those guys where I'm like, okay, my standard is I'm not coming on the bandstand not knowing my stuff. I'm going to know everything I need to know and be ready and be flexible to change. So that work happens when nobody's looking. That work happens when you're at home and you're listening to something over and over and over again. That work happens outside of the bandstand, and that's part of the standard. And it's also a lesson in integrity because, like you said, a lot of guys want to be on the same stages. A lot of guys want to have the fame or have what, the fringe benefits that come with it. But integrity is all about what you do when people aren't looking. And that's the hard part, because nobody's going to hold your hand and say, make sure you listen to your music now. Make sure you're prepared. You have to show up prepared and know that you did everything you could to be prepared and be ready for that opportunity.
And once again, we're listening to I Am Refocused Radio, talking to Dr. Gregory Daniel. And I like what you just said, because that's a very important piece to anybody's life, because our life is shaped by our choices. And for you personally, how has faith played a role throughout your music career?
Man, faith is everything, bro. I mean, on the basic level, I always, saw myself doing what I'm doing now, but I couldn't imagine being able to do it for the person I'm doing it with and somebody I even grew up listening to. But one, I always had faith that some of the things my mom spoke into my life and my parents spoke into my life about, my music reaching the world, it literally has in my travels and some of the stuff I've been able to do. And so it's not just having that faith, but being involved in church, putting that first, putting God first, and, investing my time in ministry is, like I said, I could not be doing what I'm doing had I not done that. And I think one thing where some people get it wrong is that they think that you failed if you're, like most of us, start as church musicians and make it on a large gospel platform. And then a lot of us also play for secular artists. But I've always viewed, as far as my faith and my view of things, and even my grandmother, who's a bishop in Shreveport, Louisiana, Bishop Ruby Pettisclo, when I first started playing for McKnight, she told me herself, hey, don't worry about what some of these pastors and people may say about you playing for an artist. You need to, take God with you wherever you go. And that's what I've done, man. When people have come up to me after shows and ask, how do you do this and how have you made it here, I let them know, like, I would not be where I am if I hadn't put God first and continue to do ministry. When I was living in San Antonio, many weekends, I would literally walk off the plane, drive straight to church and do 2 or 3 different services that day. That's always been my push. That's always been my drive. That's always been a priority, even when I started doing this. One thing I always try to get people to understand is it's not enough to just have faith. My pastor always preaches, faith without works is dead. Part of those works is controlling and doing what you can to continue to demonstrate what you believe in. And whether that's, tithing, that's part of demonstrating what you believe in, giving of your time, giving of your mind, giving of your spirit to the ministry, and even just your personal relationship with God. That is what's most important, and that's what's going to sustain you, even when everything else goes away. Right now, we haven't been on the road since February because of COVID-19, but I can honestly say and thank God that, I have not been lacking or gone without. And, I have to attribute that to my faith. Part of my faith of tithing, anytime I get any type of money into my account, the first thing I do is pay my tithe. And that's part of my faith, because I could very well say, well, I don't know when I'm going to get another check. I need to keep all of this I can, but that's not faith. That's not sacrifice. Faith is demonstrating things even when you're unsure. Faith is sticking to that foundation regardless of what shows up and what happens or what tries to sway you from that foundation.
That's good, because some people can easily get distracted, and those distractions can prevent you from doing what God will want you to do. And that says a lot, especially for you and what you've been able to accomplish. What you said earlier about even when you get all these things, you still remember who's the source, and you always keep him first. That's something that a lot of people, I believe, are looking for. Because, you know, a lot of people are looking for answers, and they've tried to find it in this and that. And I look at those as substitutes. They might temporarily give you relief, but they won't fix the problem. God is the source for everything. And as you have grown, not just as a music artist, but you're more than that. You executed your education. You got into real estate. You didn't just settle for just one thing. Talk about that.
You'd be surprised how many people don't understand that, or just like, you know, you're doing too much. You need to settle on this. And the thing is, I had to realize, because even I've been back and forth with myself, but I had to realize that that's me. You know, part of knowing God is getting to know yourself. And, you know, I always bring up the, you know, and I'm not a Bible scholar or anything like that, but I always bring up the scripture about the men giving different talents and different level of talents. And what I always got out of that story is that you're accountable for what you got, regardless of it's 1 talent, 10 talents, 5 or nothing. You have to be accountable for using all of it. And I realized a long time ago that I'm built in a manner where I can master several different things or understand things at a high level enough to be able to do what I need to do and for me to be able to execute in those areas. So I would be failing in my eyes if I don't do that to the highest potential. So where a lot of people will say, well, you've already reached your dream job of going on the road with a multi-Grammy nominated artist and one of the greatest of all time. And I was like, that's great. But one, logistically, that's not going to last forever. But also, I just can't bring myself to just settle and only do that. You know, that was one of the reasons why I decided to go to law school, but also because I knew my experiences would be able to help people in that arena. My experiences in being able to understand real estate is going to be able to help people, and it has helped people. Even just taking those 3 things on top of that, you know, what's been confirmation for me, again, during this COVID-19, I essentially have lost my job for right now because nobody in the live music arena is really doing great right now. We can't do live shows. We can't travel. That's really on hold. And had I put all my eggs in that basket, I'm not doubting God would not have blessed me, but I have abundance because I'm able to say, okay, I can't do that right now. Let me go try to help people find houses. Let me go make sure my law license is straight and so I can start representing clients. Let me start a consultation business. And it's that, man. So, I mean, it really boiled down to me knowing myself and stretching myself. And even, and yes, that comes with the price. But at the end of the day, it goes back to faith. Mm-hmm. You know, if I have the faith that I know I've been blessed with being able to do, understand, execute the things that I can, I have to have faith and know that I'll be able to handle it.
And once again, we were listening to Iron Refocus Radio, talking to Dr. Gregory Daniel. And what you just said, when you say it all ties back to faith, I think that is so important for the audience to catch, because nothing in this world is going to last. And you can try every single thing on this earth, and you might think it satisfies you or gives you that temporary relief, but there's nothing better than God. Like nothing. Like there's zero. Nothing that can replace what he can do for your life. He will always teach you things that other people can't. He will always give you a blueprint, and he will give you certain things that you need along your life journey, because our life is like chapters. And if we get stuck in a place, we had to get back to the source, because we have more left in life to write our story. Absolutely, man. That's absolutely right. Now, say someone's listening right now and they're aspiring to be a music artist or grow being a music career. What would you say to them if they feel like they're stuck in their growth? What words of wisdom will you give to that person? Aside from pray, seek God and put God first, logistically speaking, one of the things I try to tell a lot of artists and musicians is
a lot of us get into that mindset of we want that one phone call. We want that big phone call that says, hey, I want you to come on tour and do this. You know, one thing I like that I've seen time and time again, there's a lot of musicians that are on large platforms that they got there because they created the opportunity for themselves in a way. They got on YouTube and put out videos and put them all everywhere and created that lane so that they were seen by the right people. And, you know, once again, faith without works is dead. You can aspire to get that phone call, but you're not going to get that phone call if nobody knows about you.
Right.
You know, you have to put in the work and time and effort and really study your craft, find your lane, and embrace it and continue to be a student. You know, I think a lot of people also make the mistake of getting to a place where they believe they can't really grow anymore, or they think that they've maxed out or they've got everything they need to get. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to hunt down the people that you see are doing, you know, what you're wanting to do. Should nothing be prideful about doing that, because a lot of these guys will help you. You know, I'm one of them that people ask me all the time how I do this, how I do that. And I'm like, yeah, this is what I did. It may not necessarily work for you, but the concept of, you know, making stuff happen for yourself and creating a platform for yourself is very important.
I heard someone say one time, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. And
absolutely.
I would say this to add to that is, if God is not the one, that is the source. Right. I mean, it doesn't matter what your dream is, what you think you are, what you think you know, because God will shut it down. He will literally humble you and say, hey, remember, seek the kingdom first, right?
Right. And it's true, because the way I got the McKnight gig through his music director. Wow. I met him playing in a church in Mattapan, Massachusetts when I was up at Berklee. Mm-hmm. I would take the train about 30, 45 minutes every Sunday, every Tuesday for rehearsal, and that's how I met him. It wasn't a huge church. It was a small church, and I loved the bishop. He passed away a couple of years ago, but it was a great church. But once again, man, that was what I was putting first. I had no clue who he was before I met him. You know, another friend of mine was the guy that got me to play there, and I had no clue who the guy was. So there was no, let me go do this so I could try to get this gig one day. That's not at all what it was. You know, I went in there, you know, seeking God first and wanting to contribute to a ministry and, you know, do what I love doing. And that's where that blessing came out of that. I could be one of the poster children for exactly what you're saying is, you know, you seek the kingdom first, then all things will be added. And
just what you just said is perfect for the audience to grab and hold on to, because there's also a scripture that says don't despise small beginnings. And right. I believe God strategically places us in certain places on purpose, because that's where he wants you to develop. That's where he wants you Absolutely. To learn. That's where he wants you to be surrounded with people that he strategically put in your life so that they can help you grow into your fullest potential. But you can't do that without God. You can't. Absolutely. I agree, man. I agree 100%. Now, if someone's listening right now and they're like, man, they talking about God, talking about Jesus, like, what's all this about? Man, if someone's listening right now and they don't even have a clue as far as like what they want to do in life, they're trying to find a purpose, or maybe they did and they're just stuck, they're frustrated. Based on your life experience so far, what words of wisdom would you like to give that person who might be struggling in that way? Man, I think if you're struggling, either if you are struggling with trying to figure out what to do, or just struggling with you kind of know what to do already, but you're not sure, the biggest thing I can say is stick with what makes you happy and what you love. And that sounds corny, but it's important, because, you know, even what I do, even traveling on the road, it's not all peaches and cream. It's not all just 100% happy all the time. Everything's great. Everything goes smooth. There are trying times. It is difficult sometimes. And it does come with sacrifices, but what keeps you doing and keeps you going is you're doing what you love. And I think people underestimate that value when it comes to them choosing a career path, because
no career path is going to come without any problems whatsoever. So you have to always have something to fall back on when it comes to your reason why. And that reason why should start with, this is what I would do and would love to do, even if I didn't get paid for it. This makes me happy. And there's always a way to, to monetize that. There's always a way to make that a career. That just comes down to choices and sacrifices. I could easily have said, hey, I just want to go to medical school so I can make a bunch of money. But if that's not what makes me happy, I got to go do what makes me happy. Because at the end of the day, when it comes close for you to say, man, I'm really trying to call it quits, if it's what makes you happy, if it's what you love doing, there's no way you're ever going to quit.
Once again, we've been talking to Dr. Gregory Daniel, and we had the honor to have him on I Am Refocused Radio, and I know it's going to inspire a lot of people. I want to thank you for being on the show today. Before we go, man, how can people stay in contact with you?
You can stay in contact with me via Instagram. My Instagram is Gregory Daniel MU. And also my website will be going live in the next coming days. If you stay on my Instagram, you'll be able to see that announcement once it is. And that URL is going to be drgdanielesq.com.
Like we always say on every single show, keep God first, stay focused, and peace.
Thanks for listening to I Am Refocused Radio, brought to you by Documation. Documation is a full-service technology solutions company that provides IT, print, and software managed services. Headquartered in San Antonio, Documation has been serving customers across Texas for nearly 30 years. Visit Mation.com today. Hi, San Antonio. Need a barber? Visit our good friend Rico Rodriguez, the owner of Rockefellers Barbershop in San Antonio, Texas, 1733 Babcock Road, and book your appointment today by calling 210-782-5188.